Thank you for coming back. Welcome back. So we're going to have our second panel session in a little bit, and I've talked about that, where we're going to sort of roll forward and think what AI means for us in the future and for law firms. So you've got Aisling and Sarah from the SRA, and Ed and Jess from tech providers. So hopefully we'll be able to give you some insights into what the future might look like, and what we're seeing now and how it might develop over the coming years. So with that in mind, maybe I'll start, Jess and Ed, in the middle with you two, and think about how do you think AI is most likely to change the landscape for legal services and legal consumers over the next 5, 10, maybe beyond years?
You want to go? Sorry.
Over to you.
Cool. Thank you. Nice to meet you, everyone here. I think it can change relatively dramatically. AI has had a bit of a revolution recently, and the legal services, in my mind, should move a bit more towards what they're like in Suits. That's what I'm kind of envisaging. But essentially, I think what it will do will change the lawyer's role to more of an augmented lawyer's role eventually. So what we're looking at here is providing services that can be much faster, much quicker, and risks and things like that can be identified much sooner and better in a transaction. Now, it's not that I'm not saying that AI is going to replace the lawyers, but it's more allowing the lawyers to do the work that they want to do and be lawyers as such. And in that sense, I think the first step will be looking at the role of trainees, paralegals, kind of the lower levels, and how they're training, and looking at how that will be adapted with the help of AI.
Hi everyone, I'm Ed. I'm the co-founder of Orbital Witness, sort of legal tech meets prop tech. I'll explain a little bit more later. Actually really excited to be here because before I moved into legal tech and founded Orbital Witness in 2018, I worked in the space industry for the European Space Agency, so this is very triggering for me to be back here. 5 to 10 years is a very long time in AI, a really long time if you think about the advances that have been made in the last year. And kind of projecting forward over that kind of time period should be both, I think as Tom put it perfectly, both very exciting and a little bit scary for legal services and consumers. So when we pitch our product to law firms, and we provide a legal AI assistant that's bespoke for real estate transactions, both for residential conveyancing firms right up to Magic Circle law firms that do commercial property transactions, we pitch it as, think of a junior lawyer who doesn't need to eat, sleep, wash, take holidays, but remembers everything that you've ever taught him or her, and speaks multiple languages. So think about it, if that person exists. And in 5 to 10 years, some of the teething issues that we're experiencing with AI today, some of the things that will be presented as risks, those will be gone. So we'll be dealing with something that really is incredibly powerful, and we'll have overcome some of the kind of those initial hurdles that we have today. So what does that mean then for legal services and for consumers? I think for legal services, some of those systemic issues that you all face today, those of you who are kind of business owners and operators in the legal space and law firms, resourcing, particularly in volatile and seasonal markets like property, will become a lot easier. Meeting deadlines will become a lot easier. Ensuring consistency of work across your firm becomes a lot easier, but scary. What skills does the new type of lawyer need? Scary. How is this going to work if I always use the billable hour as my charging model? And then for consumers of legal services, excitement. It's going to bring the cost of legal services down. That means more access to legal services. And if you're in the corporate world, it means maybe you're not going to have as much of a bun fight with your lawyer over the scope of work, because that's going to be unlimited, or certainly less limited, in a world full of AI. So that's also really exciting, but scary also, because how do I know that the quality of the service I'm getting is what I should expect? So that's kind of my project forward over a longer 5 to 10 year time frame.
Thanks very much. And Aisling, you've done a bit of work in terms of what solicitors are telling us that they're seeing. Perhaps you could give a bit of a sort of view of the profession that we're seeing.
Yeah, so nice to meet everyone who I haven't managed to speak to yet. I'm Aisling, I'm Head of Innovation Policy at the SRA, And we, in our team, we spend time engaging with those of you working on the front lines, so with solicitors, with law firms, and with innovators. So in terms of the kind of opportunities that we've heard, and the excitement and the risk, I suppose, and the, perhaps kind of some of the worry around the opportunities for AI in 5 to 10 years and beyond. From a consumer point of view, I think kind of aligned with what Ed was saying, I think there is a sense of excitement and this sense that AI really does have that potential to help people understand when they do have a legal need. We know that's a big issue in our market right now, that lots of people have a legal matter or a legal issue and they don't actually know that. They don't know that they could solve that problem with the help or the advice of a trusted professional. So I think AI has that potential to help educate the public and consumers on when they do have a legal need and help point them to those trusted services. And I also think there's excitement from the consumer point of view in terms of transparency. So in terms of helping them know what's happening with their legal matter if they do decide to use a kind of trusted provider and trusted service, to be able to use platforms and kind of engage in real time with lawyers. So I think there's a sense of excitement around that and the transparency that AI can provide to members of the public for perhaps a system that at times has felt a bit opaque to them. And then I think kind of from lawyers' point of view, the sort of excitement and things that we hear about the impact AI can have is really helping move our sector to be truly data enabled. And I think there's a real opportunity, and there's an old adage that you kind of hear about the legal sector, about us being very, kind of document heavy and information heavy, but perhaps kind of data poor. And that kind of challenge that we have as a sector for having objective, good quality data, and that being a challenge that we have right now for AI tools and for kind of innovators in terms of training and developing those types of tools. I think there's a real sense of excitement that actually, if AI can take off on our sector and can be used more widely, it can help generate new insights in the practice of law and not just in the business of law, as we've heard earlier. So those are some of the things that we hear from solicitors and from law firms.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah, Aisling touched a bit on the consumer perspective. We've actually been involved in some research, and I wondered if you wanted to say a little bit more about what we're seeing the public thinks of all of this.
Yeah, sure, Liz. Hello, I'm Sarah Watson, Head of Research at the SRA, and we did some research with the Legal Services Board, the LSB, a couple of years ago, and that did show that the public and solicitors are willing to use quite a lot of technology that helps access to and delivery of legal services. In particular, there was stronger willingness to use technology that people are familiar with. Lots of you have already mentioned sort of video consultations, and e-signatures was another sort of tool that people are familiar with and very willing to use. And things have obviously moved on a bit, as people have said already. Things have moved on since that research was done, and so therefore people will be more willing to use more things since we did that. At that time, though, the research found that the public were more willing than solicitors thought they would be to use more unfamiliar tools such as chatbots that were driven by AI and smart contracts. So I think an overall message, perhaps from this research, was to sort of challenge our assumptions that we might have about what other people think about their willingness to use AI and the particular sort of uses of tech in general.
Okay, thanks. So law is obviously very regulated, so lawyers naturally need to be cautious. So what challenges does that present in terms of the wide-scale adoption of AI? Should we start at the end and come down, if you'd like? Thanks, Sarah.
So we did some research with the University of Oxford a couple of years ago, and that actually showed that it wasn't the regulation so much in itself that was the barrier, but it was people's uncertainties about what they were allowed to do within the regulations, and that included both the SRA's regulations and data protection regulations, and all the other things that that you're sort of bound by. And most of the large firms are using AI, and a lot of small and medium firms are using more and more. And it's in those smaller firms that the research found that there was more uncertainty about which systems might benefit them and how to use them safely. Liz, you mentioned earlier a report that the SRA have done, and that's the Risk Outlook report on AI that was published at the end of last year. And in that we reiterated that our regulation focuses on the outcomes that firms achieve and not necessarily the specific tools that are used to achieve those outcomes. In terms of supporting those looking to adopt tech as well, we've got some online resources in our SRA Innovate web pages. That includes questions to consider when buying tech. We've also got some law tech insight publications. Some of you might be signed up to already. For instance, in the December issue of that, there were some considerations about how to procure tech, again in that. And there's obviously our ethics team as well, who you can ask questions of if you've got an idea about something innovative, something new or different that you want to try out and you want to test whether that does fit within our regulations, then they're obviously a great source of information.
Excellent. I saw a few nods when you said about uncertainty in terms of whether it's compliant. So yeah, do check out those resources. I don't know, Jess or Ed, did you have anything to add on that?
I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Jess, I'm from Avail, but I used to be a solicitor myself. Well, I am a solicitor, but I was practicing, and risk and uncertainty, as Sarah was saying, is really, really big at the moment, especially as there's so much uncertainty in terms of our legislation in the UK. So obviously we've got the EU doing the EU AI Act, which for tech providers like us is somewhat terrifying, but great. And then you've got the US, and we don't obviously know where we're quite landing yet, especially with the general election. So risk is really, really important. And for a firm's perspective, if you're kind of dabbling in the AI sort of world and tools, asking the right questions from a security perspective is really important, because it's not just on the law firms. We're also taking the perspective of we are legal tech. We are providing tech to law firms. We're doing it for different solutions as well. So you'll have tech for basic admin stuff, which there is no real risk there. And then you're doing it for client matter work, which there is a specific risk, and more risks around that, and you need more security measures in place. So we are also taking steps and measures to put in place to make sure that you guys are comfortable as law firms. And so asking those questions and working with the tech providers, I think, is really, really important. And there are some new kind of standardized security questionnaires out there. There are principles, all of these things out there, which are really, really great. And I have to give Microsoft a big kudos here, because a lot of their infrastructure is really, really safe and secure. So kind of having those conversations can actually help alleviate those concerns and that uncertainty. And if they don't alleviate that uncertainty when you're having those conversations, you can move on to another solution, or kind of get them to start putting in measures in place. So I think it's about communication, not just internally within the firm, but also with the tech sector as well.
Okay, thank you.
Just picking up on what Jess said just then. So our current situation is, as many of you will know, we have a decentralized pro-innovation framework to work with 5 kind of guiding principles that are adopted by each regulator for their various industry to flesh out for in this case for law firms. And I think, as Jess was saying, it's really incumbent upon us as suppliers to help with the burden of compliance, and it is quite a significant burden, particularly for smaller firms. AI should not just be for the big corporate firms, it should be for everyone. And I think it can be very difficult if you don't have a significant in-house resource to figure out how to comply with all of these things. So give a couple of practical examples of what we can be doing and should be doing as suppliers. The principles will say AI systems need to be transparent and explainable, which means you need to be able to explain them to your clients. So what we will do in this case is, with our products, when they're reasoning, they will tell you how they're reaching their conclusion, their answer, what documents they've checked, what thoughts they've had to reach a particular conclusion, and then they'll source reference the answers at the end so you can see how an answer was reached. So we're trying to respond as the tech provider to a principle of regulation, which is transparency and explainability. Another one is that systems need to be safe, secure, robust, and provide recourse and accountability. So that's a lot of due diligence and ongoing monitoring that you need to do in order to comply. So again, what we're trying to do as a supplier, trying to help with that sort of burden, is we're starting to insure our AI products. They're backed by insurance, so that shifts the burden of DD from the law firm onto the and ongoing monitoring from the law firm onto the insurance company, and also offers recourse because even the best AI systems aren't infallible. So it is very much incumbent on the suppliers to think, how can we make compliance easier?
And I think just kind of building on what everyone else has said, kind of two other examples I would give in terms of the challenges or concerns that we hear. One is around accountability. So this kind of, I suppose, nervousness or fear that, you know, if something goes wrong with a tool or with kind of the use of an AI tool, who is kind of responsible for that? Is it the provider, you know, the supplier that you've used? Is it the law firm? You know, kind of at SRA, and we've already talked about the useful resources that we have online to kind of help you navigate this evolving and ever-changing landscape. But, you know, ultimately law firms and solicitors are regulated by the SRA. You remain responsible for the systems that you use within your firm. So, you know, the resources we have online kind of help you navigate how you go about, I suppose, procuring those types of tools and services. And then the other kind of thing that we hear about is concern, I suppose, around data. And if you did want to kind of use an AI tool, and if you did want to train it on real data, because we often hear how actually the real value of these sort of tools is them being able to have been trained on real life case data and client data. But how does a law firm kind of remain compliant with client confidentiality requirements, as well as kind of using an AI tool? You know, we touched upon this kind of earlier in the earlier panel. You know, some of this is just kind of sensible approach that many lawyers kind of take already, and all of you in the room do already, I'm sure, which is do not enter confidential information into a public platform such as ChatGPT, which is public and where the data isn't secure. And again, I think kind of as Ed mentioned, it's about kind of talking to your supplier and getting that kind of assurance and confidence as to those kind of security measures and that the information is being held securely. So those are kind of two areas that I would just add to what everyone else has said.
And I'm sure everyone saw the cases in, was it New York last year, where they were citing cases that didn't exist. So obviously check your information as well. Brilliant, that's really helpful. So thinking ahead then, if AI and the use of AI in the profession is inevitable, what does it mean for what the sector looks like, what we need to be thinking about in the future? What does a law firm look like in the future? Any thoughts on that?
Picking up on one topic that was discussed earlier, how you charge clients, I think is a really interesting one. I think it was mentioned earlier by Rachel, the timekeeping is locked in to professional services for sure, but the billable hour potentially is not. So moving on to fixed fee models and value-based pricing seems to be almost an inevitable direction for the industry. Perhaps not for every type of law. I think and imagine there are certain types of legal services which are better suited still to the billable hour. But for kind of more commoditized legal services, that seems to be fairly inevitable.
And just building on that point that Ed was making, looking at new innovative ways of fee structuring as well. So I've seen, for example, some of our clients, they're offering their clients different levels of sort of fee structures. So you could have a gold standard as compared to a silver standard. I'm not saying obviously silver standard is where AI comes in, but it's sort of saying, look, we've done our due diligence because we do real estate due diligence as well. We've done our due diligence using an AI tool and we've checked it. Or you can just have the AI, what the AI produced, and that being a lower level, cheaper, but they're still getting some kind of benefit from that from the lawyers. So not just, okay, we're moving to fixed fees, but actually how can we do different offerings for our customers and our clients? You know, can we offer different levels of service for that particular transactional need? But as I said, obviously some areas of law are sort of more appropriate for that, but that's another way of looking at it.
Okay. I think I might open up to questions, conscious of the time. Any questions? Always takes a moment for people to... One at the front, thanks. Thanks, Simon.
Hello again, Mr. Sharma from Banisha Solicitors. Just a quick one, yeah. You mentioned about the AI giving a fake case, yeah? And I believe they are regulated as well, like we are. So this kind of solutions, like they're providing the what you call details with these fake cases, anybody can provide this. So where is the solution coming for the solicitors practicing? Like if we're going to put reliance on the AI, so how does it affect us and how do we get as a regulated people, as the solicitors? So they are not regulated. That's my first question. If they are regulated, how does it affect us? Can we quote them that we have done our intelligence, due diligence and all? Does it affect us that way? I don't know what will be the answer.
So let me just check. So you're saying that if a law firm relies on AI-generated information to practice law and it turns out not to be real, like that fake case in New York, where is the liability and where is the regulation?
No, we will be doing our due diligence and we find that it is a fake case. What I'm trying to ask, are the AI people who are supplying the services, are they regulated as well?
Oh, I see. Regulation of the AI. So any comeback. Well, I think the whole point, I should let some of the experts talk, but it's learning as it goes, isn't it? So it becomes more accurate as it goes. But I'll let other people talk about that if anyone wants to come in.
Give a short answer to one question. At least for the SRA, we're not regulated by the SRA. So the SRA regulates law firms. You're accountable for the services you provide to your clients. And whether in the future there'll be a separate regulator for us, as things exist today, we're not the regulated entity, if that was what you were asking.
Like the banks are being regulated by the FCA, we are being regulated by the SRA. So these AI people who are coming to us, so is there any sort of responsibilities they are having or not? So you have answered my question that it's not regulated.
So the tech firms themselves are not regulated. Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Thank you. Any more questions?
So I suppose just following on from that, for the SRA particularly, do you think that in the future that might be something that you look at actually, is regulating legal tech firms that are assisting solicitors? Or is that something that you would never want to get involved in and just kind of keep at arm's length?
I don't think it's within our remit to do that, is it? So I don't think we would be able to do that legally.
So we're governed by the Legal Services Act, and that sets the regulatory remit for us. So it would require a change in that act for us to be able to sort of broaden our regulation. The government of the time and any other potential government as well are considering just that, really, about potential future of AI regulation. So it's a sort of wait and see, really, on it, I think.
We're offering guidance on what you need to be mindful of and aware of, you know, and I think the example I quoted was literally they just typed it into ChatGPT or something similar. I don't think it was that they were using a product. So, you know, it's slightly different to you know, proper products that are developed. But, of course, you need to do your due diligence, as you say. Oh, one here and then at the back. Thanks.
Sorry, just on the question that I think was it Mr. Sharma? Hi. I think it's probably for you, Ed. Whilst you're not regulated, but you mentioned insurance-backed. So are you saying that in the event that there's an issue, an error, omission on the part of the AI, that will then essentially be recoverable by, say, for example, a law firm that's utilizing your services? Is that correct?
In short, that's it. The way we think about it, and this is part of a bigger piece about like what does it mean to fully embrace and rely on AI? And to be clear, today AI is as we call it, an augmented function, a support function, and that's exactly where it should be. It is still like, relatively, or at least generative AI is still a relatively new thing. But we're talking here about 5-10 years time. So let's think about the future and how do we get to that point where it's fully embraced and relied on for certain tasks, if not for everything. And so for me, there's kind of maybe 3 elements there. 2 of them I'm going to say are table stakes. One is quality of the products, both in terms of what they can do and how accurately and well they do them. Reputations take a long time to build and take a very short time to tear apart. So unless the product is functionally good enough, there's no point us discussing other things. The second element is regulation. Again, we have to be able to be in a regulatory environment which allows firms to pass some of the burden onto AI systems. Otherwise, again, we can't move the conversation forwards. But then this third piece, we believe, is insurance and indemnity. So exactly the way that you described is being able to say, we've got a security barrier in place that both relieves some of the burden of compliance, because the DD is done by the insurer, and also allows you to have recourse and protect your own PI in the event that there is an issue. So yeah, if there's an error, if there's an omission, this policy picks up.
Do you mind me asking what your level of cover is that's recoverable?
We've approached this looking at the amount of insurance that law firms are required to provide their clients in the instances that this insurance provides, and I'll be happy after this to give you more details.
Hello, good morning. My question is to Esling, Head of Innovation Policy. Having had in my LLM, I had intellectual property law, and I am qualified in 2 jurisdictions. I am from originally, my country of origin is Bangladesh, and I was and is an advocate of Supreme Court of Bangladesh. Simultaneously, I am a solicitor of England and Wales. So having had practicing certificate from both jurisdiction, and having had the background study in intellectual property law, I have a passion to introduce a dispute resolution which will work, and I have a mission to engage 2 countries in dispute resolution in the area of intellectual property. And in this area, if I embrace the AI technology, do you consider that it would be an innovation in the legal area?
So just so I kind of understand the question, it's whether this kind of potential new dispute resolution tool that you're developing, whether it would be kind of an innovation in England and Wales jurisdiction, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is quite timely. So we actually have a project ongoing at the minute where we're looking at dispute resolution and kind of online dispute resolution specifically. So very happy to kind of talk to you about that project and to learn more about kind of what you're doing after the event, if that sounds good.
Sounds like a timely link up there. Yeah, have a chat over lunch. Okay, I'm conscious of the time, and I'd like to ask the panelists what we asked earlier, which is a takeaway, a top key piece of advice or practical takeaway for everyone here today. Whoever wants to go first, top hints and tips.
I can be really predictable, I think. I'm a researcher, so I'm going to say research. And it was touched on earlier. It's really, it's time well spent. So, look into the different types of tech, the different tech providers, see which one works for you and your clients. And yeah, as said earlier, it takes time, but it really is time well spent.
Mine's probably building on that, actually. Just being open and experimental with different tech solutions, bearing in mind what you need and what your teams and your practices need, and investment as well. So I've got 2. Investment. I think, where you can is making those investments in AI now, so that you're kind of, prepared for the future when it will become much more prevalent in the legal sphere.
If you are inclined to be skeptical, which I think there's a lot of hype around AI at the moment, just bear in mind kind of technology myopia. Like this stuff is, in some respects, the worst. Well, in every respect, the worst it's ever going to be. So all of these advancements, however impressive things look now, it's only going to get better and more powerful. So keep an open mind. And I think the other thing I would say that perhaps wasn't discussed earlier is Rome wasn't built in a day. When you're looking at embracing some of this new technology, trying some of this new technology. Manage your expectations, manage your team's expectations, and know that the work it's not just a question of buying the thing, that the work really kicks in once you've got that product, and maybe don't try and boil the ocean with something that claims to do absolutely everything across all parts of your business. Focus on, I think it was mentioned by Tom earlier, narrowly defined, well understood problems and opportunities, and go from there.
I think kind of building on what everyone has said and perhaps kind of being predictable as well, I would say, kind of keep your regulatory kind of obligations in mind, but in a positive way. It's an enabler. It's not necessarily a limiter to using technology. Be curious, and I think kind of exactly what Ed has said. Rome wasn't built in a day. This is a fast-moving, evolving landscape. So kind of continue to be curious and try things out, and don't expect it to solve all of your problems, because it is not a silver bullet to everything, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm conscious I didn't actually ask if anyone had any final questions, so I don't want you not to have the opportunity. So I think we're okay, so go on then. Last question of the day.
It's only a very quick one. Is there a current regulatory requirement to inform clients that you are using AI?
So if you are using AI and you have a human kind of oversee the outputs of that, then there's no requirement, but it is kind of good practice. And we talk about this in our risk outlook report from December in terms of if you are using AI and kind of how you're using AI in your firm, kind of have an explainer to your clients and be as transparent as you can be in a way that they understand. So I would say kind of look at the risk outlook report from December first and foremost, and kind of take that guidance and those tips in mind.
Okay. Does everyone feel they've had an opportunity to ask questions? Okay. And just a show of hands, do you feel that you've got some practical hints and tips to take away? Yeah. So you're going to go and embrace the opportunities. I like the idea of identifying your pain points and starting small and going for those quick wins, but then being mindful of the opportunities once you've got everyone on board. I think that's sort of what I'll take away, something little to get people on board first. So can we thank our panel, please? So just a few things to say before we close. As I say, I really hope that you've enjoyed the session and that you do feel that you've got something to take away. Do check out the resources. I think Sarah and Aisling both touched on the resources we've got on our website. There's a lot on there, both on the SRA Innovate and our normal guidance. So do check things out and look at the resources. And there's some other webinars and things you can look at, including, I think, Tom's video, which I think is an engaging one that you might want to share. So please take it away, and hopefully it's been helpful. What would be really helpful for us is to get your feedback. We want to make these events as useful as possible, so please do. I think we're going to email to you later on today the feedback form, so please take the time to fill it in. It is really helpful to us because we want to know what it is that you'd like to get out of future events, so please do that. A couple of other things to call out. So as I mentioned first thing, it's a fantastic venue, and for those of you who haven't been here before, and if you are interested in space, you are allowed to look around the exhibits free of charge until 4 o'clock today. So, and I didn't tell you that at the start because I didn't want to lose you all. So now you've stayed with us all morning. Well, I hope you'll come for some lunch first, but then do take a look around the exhibit. And the final thing, which my daughter would have been absolutely thrilled by, is apparently you also get 10% off in the gift shop. So if people are looking to take some presents home, then allow time to fight the school children and make it to the gift shop. Other than that, if I can thank all of our speakers for today, thank all of you attending, and perhaps if we can also thank the organisers for today as well.